3. This, Matthias, is basically a win-and-in match for Nelson and Hoogland.
Yep, and well, Brad's deck is a little bit different than some of the other Roanoke players' deck. He has 3 Geist of St. Traps in the main deck. That's his own adjustment to the deck. I think an adjustment that could come in very handy in this matchup.
I agree. You know, it's a bit of a different take, but Nelson is typically more of an aggressive player. He likes to get in the red zone. He likes to close games out. That's why you're going to see main deck Geist of St. Trapped here. You see Hoogland playing his deck that he's been playing for a very long time, multiple Open Series top 8s. Last time I saw him in Milwaukee doing coverage there, Patrick Sullivan makes the top 4.
That was his double top 8 weekend. All right, so Hoogland, and one of the reasons this goes back to when Aggro Loam used to be a really popular deck. Mox Diamond, one of the stronger cards in Legacy for a deck that can support it, and Hoogland gets a turn 1 Chalice for 1 down on the board.
Now this is a card that a lot of people have talked about in Legacy as being one of the top cards in the format. You know, if you can play a turn 1 Chalice of the Void, you shut off a lot of cards in this format that goes incredibly quick, makes things so that your Brainstorms, your Ponders, your Preordains, your Lightning Bolts, as Nelson's going to cast a Brainstorm in response to the Chalice of the Void, it shuts all of those things off. Now, as for Deathblade, it does have a lot of varying mana costs within it, so a Chalice for 1 is going to be an annoyance, as you see looks like he's going to put back a Source of Plowshares and something else. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it's certainly a good start for Hoogland.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what Hoogland follows this up with. What it does is, I think, in this matchup, it doesn't win the game as it might in others, but it buys him a lot of time to get his engine online.
Absolutely it does. As we are going to watch Nelson resolve this Brainstorm. He's going to keep it going here. We do have our standings right now. For those of you guys wondering at home, Michael Braverman, someone who gave Brad Nelson a loss in the Junk Aristocrats mirror, he's your leader at 37 points.
Right, with 2 losses. Dave Shields is in second place with 2 losses and a draw. And then we have a slew of players with 3 losses, including Jerry Thompson, Jeff Hoogland, Brad Nelson, and Michael Bondi.
So, those are just some of our players that are having a fantastic weekend. We'll get to more of that, but we want to keep our attention here on this game as we are going to watch Hoogland untap with a Mox Diamond and a Taiga. He's going to play a Forest, and let's see what the follow-up play is going to be here for Jeff.
Well, he has another Chalice in his hand. Once he gets to 4 mana, that will be more dangerous. He can Chalice on 2, which is a scary play for Jeff.
Yes, incredibly scary play. You're going to see a Burning Wish go get a Thoughtseize, and now he's going to cast a Thoughtseize.
So a little bit, a 3 mana Thoughtseize right there, and forgets about his own Chalice.
Wow, what a giant mistake there from Hoogland.
All right, it's okay, you know, he still might be in a fine situation here.
Yeah, I mean,
but that is definitely a slip.
That is definitely a slip up, and what we have talked about multiple times being in these high pressure situations, playing for top 8 against a former player of the year. Maybe a little bit of nerves, Matthias?
Possibly. I mean, the invitation, Jeff Hoogland without an invitational top 8, but certainly with a lot of Star City Open top 8s.
Now you're going to see an Abrupt Decay here from Nelson, an innovation that has been made to Esper Deathblade. Some people only playing Esper Deathblade splashing green just for lands to activate the life-gaining part of Deathrite Shaman, but Nelson has Abrupt Decay in his deck, clears out the Chalice. He's going to follow it up with a Geist of St. Traps. So now immediately Hoogland underneath the gun, and if you take a look at Jeff's sideboard, had he maybe Burning Wished for a card like Devastating Dreams, Chainer's Edict, he's out of this situation. Instead, he's going to cast a Life from the Loam. He's going to get back a Bayou. He's going to play it. He's going to play Chalice of the Void for 1 again. But he's underneath the gun here, Matthias, from that Geist.
That's a lot of damage from the Geist. Even if he had executed his regular game plan and got stuck that Chalice for 2, Geist is just a problem for the deck in general. He has to use Edict effects. If Brad can play him, kind of protect the Geist, and sometimes it can be really effective in the matchup.
You take a look at Hoogland's main deck here. He has for creatures 1 Gaddock Teeg, 2 Tarmogoyfs, 4 Knight of the Reliquaries. Of course, blocking always a great way to try to fight that Geist of St. Traft. As far as spells are concerned, he does have 2 main deck copies of Devastating Dreams. You're also going to find a Dreams in his sideboard and that Chainer's Edict in his sideboard if he does draw another copy of Burning Wish. But he is certainly underneath some trouble here, and now you see, Matthias, exactly why Nelson is playing Geist of St. Traft.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only threat he needs in this matchup, and it's hard enough to answer that it can do the entire life total on its own.
Hoogland going to play another Chalice for 1. He wants to make sure that he locks out the 1-drops from Nelson, and you may be wondering why doesn't he play it for 2, but his outs in this situation are 2 mana cards. They are Tarmogoyf, they are Devastating Dreams, and they are Burning Wish.
Right, so he can't actually Chalice for 2 here. the Chalice for ones, they do lock out. So say he gets another out he has his Knight of the Reliquary. This does shut Brad off a possible Swords to Plowshares. That said, Brad still does play one more Abrupt Decay and a Vindicate, so he still actually has some ways to deal with this. You know, he has a Vindicate, he has Jace the Mind Sculptor. He still has a lot of relevant plays that are not on one.
So Nelson's going to draw a card. He still has that Geist. He's got a Wasteland there, has a Snapcaster Mage in hand. There's your Angel, there's your Geist attack. Going to put Hoogland down to 8 6-point intervals here from the former Player of the Year. Looks like he may go Wastelanding here against a lone deck. Kind of counterintuitive if you think about it, but might be necessary at this point.
All right, and go ahead and pick between the two Taigas.
With Mox Diamond providing so much color fixing, you know, it doesn't really matter which one Brad blows up, but he doesn't want to keep him away from having a lot of mana. I think that's the important thing here. As Hoogland's going to draw and play a Sylvan Library, Nelson going to sacrifice Blue to Delta in a turn, thin his deck a little bit here, hopefully increase the opportunity of drawing a relevant spell.
Yeah, well, Brad, maybe if he had something like a Snapcaster Mage, could go lethal this turn. I think he's going to do that just as an Ambush Viper. Now that's a swing for 8.
He's going to Abrupt Decay, take care of that Sylvan Library too, so that's a really big
value.
play.
Yep, and the Abrupt Decay comes back. Jeff Hoogland buys himself one more turn, but without the library, it's going to have to be a natural top deck.
Yeah, I think his outs right now, as he's going to take 6 more and go down to 2, I think we're looking at Burning Wish or Bust maybe here, Matthias?
It certainly seems that he needs to have a Burning Wish into an Edict effect.
And
Knight of the Relic. Knight of the Reliquary does not take care of the Angel tokens. That's actually not good enough anymore.
And I don't think Burning Wish is going to be good enough anymore either, because Stoneforge Mystic is ready to sacrifice itself. Hoogland's going to draw his card and concede the game. So Brad Nelson does win game number 1 over Jeff Hoogland. Esper Deathblade up a game against 4-color Alone off of what was a pretty large mistake there with that Burning Wish. And you can see Hoogland with his head down, shaking
really
his head.
Disappointed.
Very disappointed in that Burning Wish. Nelson can only shrug his shoulders and say, hey, I'm glad it happened. It made winning that game a lot easier. As we're going to take a look at the sideboards here, Jeff's going towards his, so we're going to take a look there. Matthias, I'll go over this. You tell me which ones you actually think are going to be pretty good. We've got a lot of singletons, of course.
Yeah.
But 3 Thalia Guardian of Thravens, and then we'll go down the singletons here of Life from the Loam, Devastating Dreams, Dreadboard, Chainer's Edict, Maelstrom Pulse, a Perish, a Slaughter Games, a Massacre, a Shattering Spree, a Thoughtseize, as far as Burning Wish targets go, a Gaddock Teague, and an Aethersworn Canvas for a little help against combo. Do any of these cards really interest you?
They're interesting, and a lot of them are good in this matchup. The question is because it's a wish board, whether he wants them in the main deck or whether he actually just wants them in the sideboard. There's more copies of them if he leaves them in the sideboard, for the most part. And because he's not a deck that can actually naturally search cards out of his own deck, I think he leaves all his sorceries in the sideboard. The only 5 cards that you actually worry about sideboarding are Gaddock Teague, Aethersworn Canonist, and 3 Thalias. The first 2 clearly don't come in this matchup. Maybe Thalia does.
You know, Thalia's kind of interesting because Brad does have spells in his deck like Abrupt Decay and Swords to Plowshares, but when you take a look at Esper Deathblade, this is the deck that is based around powerful creatures that cost very little mana. Deathrite Shaman, Snapcaster Mage, Geist of Saint Shraft, Stoneblade Mystic. Those are the cards that are, Stoneforge Mystic. Those are the cards that Thalia doesn't really do very much against.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the spell count too, Jeff actually plays more spells in his deck than Brad has in his. So I think it's very likely that Jeff just keeps the exact same 60 for the next game.
We'll go to Nelson's sideboard here again. He is up a game with 3 Flusterstorms, 2 Aethersworn Canonist of his own, 1 Vindicate, 3 Nile Spellbomb, 2 Supreme Verdicts, and it was Awashite, a Notion Thief, a Detention Sphere, and a Force of Will. What do we like from his 15?
Well, Nile Spellbomb clearly good against any deck that's trying to Life from the Loam. That'll really stop Jeff's engine. At the same time, the best way to stop the engine is to really never let it start in the first place. So we may see, I don't know if many other cards come in. You may see Detention Sphere. It's got an awkward mana cost, so it's hard. Jeff can't chalice it out. It can answer chalices. It's a decent way to kill Knight of the Reliquary. Depends how much Brad actually knows about this matchup.
Yeah. And it really, 4-color Loam, as you had mentioned a little bit earlier, it's a deck that not a lot of people see. Jeff Hoogland is one of the few, people who do play this deck to a lot of success. Not really sure how many people have replicated his success, and he is kind of the figurehead for 4-color Loam. But as a result, it's a deck that you don't really play against very often in Legacy tournaments, let alone Star City Games Open Series when they are Legacy. So a lot of people are going to be inexperienced against this matchup. Jeff probably using that to his advantage over the course of this tournament. But he does have 2 losses in Legacy where he only has 1 in Standard. So let's see if he can parlay some of that previous success, take this match against the former Player of the Year in Brad Nelson, and move on to the top 8 of this Invitational.
Yeah. will be interesting to see whether or not, to see how this matchup plays out. On paper, I think it seems to be in Deathblade's favor.
I would agree with you.
It has a lot, it's just, at the end of the day, it's playing a lot better of cards. So really, Jeff's deck has to do something impressive. It has to do something unfair. I think if he tries to play a fair fight against Brad, he's on the wrong side of the matchup. So cards like Mox Diamond to me seem very important.
So Hoogland does have his opening hand at the ready. Looks like he's happy enough. How about you, Brad? What do you think of those 7 cards? Good enough to win this one?
Yeah, he does have a Punishing Fire in his opening hand. Remember, the Loam deck also plays the Punishing Grove combo.
Yep.
That's kind of its way to deal with Brad's fair creatures.
That's part of the reason that Geist Saint Draft, which Brad has 3 copies of in his deck, is so important. That's the one card that dodges Punishing Fire and puts Hoogland underneath a lot of pressure, as Nelson is going to take a mulligan down to at least 6.
Yeah, interesting, because the Geist Saint Draft is the one card that's unique to Brad's deck and probably the most important card in this matchup.
If you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips here with former Rookie of the Year, Matthias Hunt, Star City Games Open Series here in New Jersey, featuring the Invitational. You can join us on Twitter at SCG Live, hashtag SCGINVI for your tweets. Who do you think is going to win this one between Hoogland, the up-and-comer, versus Nelson, the established pro in this matchup? Who are you rooting for? Who do you think is going to win? Who are you cheering for? That's what we want to know, of course, you guys. And make sure you do stay tuned with us, because after this round and after the following round, Matthias, we're not going anywhere. We've got a huge standard open to track. We've got William Huey Jensen, the Hall of Famer, currently 4-0 in that standard open. And what do you think he's playing? Go ahead, take a guess.
Actually, I talked to them, so I know the answer to this question.
So you know about the mono-green elves deck.
He's playing mono-green elves in standard. Yesterday I was around looking for 4 Colonian Hydras and 4 Garuks.
And he was able to find them along with 4 Craterhoof Behemoths. So if you are a mono-green fan...
A lot of green mana symbols.
And I won't lie, I was just goldfishing it before I came back over here on my break, and I killed Sam Black on turn 4. So that felt pretty good. That felt excellent. Pretty good. A little turn 3 Garrett Caller of Beast, turn 4. Put the old Crater of Behemoth in play. Have a nice day, Sam, with your Corpse Blockade and Barrage Expendables. But we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We've got a very important match between these 2 players in Brad Nelson and Jeff Hoogland. Hoogland down a game. You saw him visibly frustrated with the mistake he made in that game with the Burning Wish for Thoughtseize when he had Chalice for 1. Can he bounce back?
Well, Hoogland's a player, I've talked with him a lot, with a pretty strong mental game in that aspect, in that regard. He's always playing decks that are his own creations anyway, so in a certain sense, he's already kind of, putting himself out there. I don't think he holds himself to, having to make perfect plays. It just has to be good enough to win.
And you say that he is the kind of player who's always brewing and playing his own decks. He's had a lot of success with that. I know Grand Prix Kansas City, where you were at, you finished in the top 12, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Hoogland,
he was one of my losses at the tournament.
16th place with the blue-red Delver deck of his own design. So now we're going to see a Life from the Loan here from Jeff. Gets his land back. He's got his engine online.
Yeah, he doesn't have Punishing. He has the Punishing Fire. He does not have Grove of the Burnwillows yet. We'll likely see him dredge that Life from the Loan though to try to find it. The Deathrite Shaman is one of Brad's really good answers to this engine, but Jeff is at the ready with Punishing Fire.
So he's going to start by dredging. 3 cards turned over: a Tranquil Thicket, a Grove of the Burnwillows, and a Knight of the Reliquary. So a perfect dredge gives him the second piece to his Punishing Fire engine and a cycling land to be able to keep digging through his deck. So a perfect dredge from Life from the Loan.
Yep, and even though the Grove is there, he's not going to go and get it yet. He's going to go ahead and Punishing Fire the Deathrite Shaman. Can Brad respond here with a Nile Spellbomb?
Yeah, which again he has
3 he draws it and for the turn.
3 of them in his sideboard and now 1 of them in his hand.
Good time to draw it.
A good clean living, and his follow-up play is even better. He has a Geist Saint Draft in his hand as well. So everything coming up Nelson right now, he's going to start with a Thoughtseize, get some information. You'll see Hoogland's hand. He's got Life in the Loam. He's got Knight of Reliquary. He's got Abrupticate. He's got a Taiga. Matthias, what do you say?
Well, I think I'm taking Life from the Loam here.
Okay.
I'm confident. Well, it's close between Life and Loam and Knight of the Reliquary.
Absolutely.
I'm confident that my deck can deal with a creature. If I can get that Loam and then a Nile Spellbomb, a Loam, a Grove, and a Punishing Fire, I'm just feeling so good about this game. But that said, if Brad wants to win fast, This is actually probably the correct play. It's less exciting, but it's probably correct.
Okay.
If he just gets this blocker out of the way, jams the turn 3 Geist, Jeff can use Loam to recreate his engine, but it'll probably just take too many turns to do so.
It'll take a very, very long time for it to get re-established. So you see Nelson is going to take that Knight of the Reliquary. He's going to sacrifice Marsh Flash, get an Underground Sea. We might see that Nile Spellbomb, and while he might not be able to cantrip it and draw a card, doesn't matter. Get that graveyard out of here. Maybe get the graveyard out in response to a Life from the Loam, so that Hoogland wastes his turn doing that, and then move on.
All right, and then we see Nile Spellbomb from Brad, and I have to think he just doesn't even care about the card, or he might just crack it.
Let's see if he's going to make a move here at all. You see Nile Spellbomb on the screen. He's not going to move. Hoogland going to sacrifice a fetch land. One more card for Nelson to eat away at.
Well, I guess there's no reason to crack it right now. The Life from the Loam's actually not in the graveyard. So what this does is it strands... Sorry, we'll go back. Yeah, this is a much better line. This actually strands the Life from the Loam in Jeff's hand.
Okay.
He can't actually put it in the graveyard because when he casts Life from the Loam, Brad will Nile Spellbomb in response. So he'll actually have to burn 2 mana for nothing just to get his Loam engine going. Yeah, so with the Thoughtseize, Brad gets the Knight of the Reliquary, and he basically gets the Life from the Loam.
Yeah. So a very good Thoughtseize, it looks like here from Nelson. Hoogland going to sacrifice that Wooded Foothills, go get that Taiga. Going to allow Nelson to shuffle his deck, bring it back, and we'll see what Jeff can draw for his turn. A very, very difficult situation here for Hoogland. Burning Wish the draw.
He's going to need, let's look at the targets he has for it. The thing is, he just doesn't have any presence right now. You know, he has a Life from the Loam that he can't cast, he has an Abrupt Decay, he has a land, and he has this Burning Wish. He doesn't have any action going. The Nile Spellbomb is shutting down his entire deck.
We take a look at the Burning Wish targets, as you mentioned, Life from the Loam. Devastating Dreams, not ideal in this current situation, not a big enough hand via Life from the Loam to actually make Dreams a backbreaker. A Dreadbore, Chainer's Edict, the Maelstrom Pulse, a Perish, all removal spells. Here's Abrupt Decay, going to target that Nile Spellbomb.
I think that's what the correct play to do with your Burning Wish is to just wait.
Yes. And we're also going to see in a sideboard a Massacre, a Shattering Spree, and a Thoughtseize. Again, nothing too great there, as we see Hoogland's going to play a land out now. The Abrupt Decay attempts to take care of the Nile Spellbomb, but he knew it was going to die, so now he's going to try to get his Loam engine back online, as you mentioned, as Nelson's going to play a Tundra, and here is Public Enemy #1 again.
Exactly what we said before. Brad's going to have this 3-turn clock, and Jeff Hoogland's going to need... He needs to try to build his engine back up, and he has to do it really fast.
You see the cards he turns over via the Dredge from Life from the Loam, a Wasteland, a Badlands, and a Gaddock Teague. Gaddock Teague, we didn't think maybe he would sideboard it in, but it is a good answer to Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah.
So that's certainly a reason why. Now you're going to see him consult his sideboard, giving Nelson a little bit of information that says, yeah, I do have a Burning Wish, but I want to make sure that if I am going to cast it, I don't mess this up.
I think he's going to cast it for an Edict. He knows he has, at some point he's going to get cast for an Edict. He has to get rid of that Geist of St. Trapt.
Wow, but he's going to choose to instead cast a Life from the Loam. He's going to now cast that Burning Wish, and he may search for a Massacre here, Matthias. Massacre, a card we'll bring up on the screen.
Yeah, he doesn't and exactly what he's doing, because this actually doesn't require any mana. So a really heads-up play because he has that Massacre. I was thinking he was going to get Chainer's Edict, but this is stronger. It allows him to get his Loam engine going just 1 turn faster. Because Brad has that Plains and Jeff has a Swamp, he can cast this Infest for free.
And now Jeff can go to work on his mana base as well with the Wasteland. You saw Jeff also try to play around Daze there to the best of his ability, which he did do. Even though Nelson doesn't have Daze, certainly should play around it, as now we're going to see a Brainstorm here from Nelson to try to get back into this game. But we were worried, you and I, about Hoogland being able to start his Loam engine back again. It looks like he's doing okay.
Yeah, well, drawing that Burning Wish really helped. He needed to draw an answer, and he did just that. He's still very vulnerable to another Nile Spellbomb. If Brad can find another one of those right now, it's very rough for Jeff's deck. But that said, yeah, he has his engine going. Like, both of them are fighting on an empty board, and that's really where Loam wants to fight from.
That favors Jeff so very much. He doesn't want to have to worry about Geist of St. Trapt like he did in the previous game, or any of that stuff. You know, now that his Punishing Fire is gone, he doesn't have Grove of the Burn Willows. You know, a card like even Dark Confidant could be pretty problematic.
Remember, so what Jeff's basically on the plan of dredging Loam every turn and just wastelanding every turn. When you're dredging 3, it's almost like you're drawing 3 cards in this deck.
Yep. So now Nelson going to sacrifice the Flooded Strand. Now he's going to cast a Stoneforge Mystic, so threatening an equipment now. You see he does have a Batter Skull. He also has an Umezawa's Jitte as well. Also has a Sword of Feast and Famine throughout his 75, but it is going to be the Living Weapon as the choice of the day.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Loam deck is if Jeff is dredging every turn, then it's very hard for him to find an answer to Batter Skull. And he knows that. Brad knows this, and I believe that's why he's going for Batterskull right away.
So you see the dredge there from Hoogland. There's a Punishing Fire, there's a Forgotten Cave, and there's another copy of Wasteland.
For those who don't know Forgotten Cave, it's one of the real all-star, that whole cycle lands are really the all-stars with Life in the Loam. They're the commons from Onslaught that actually let players cycle for just 1 mana. So because you can cycle and replace that draw with a dredge from Life in the Loam, it lets you cheat drawing 1 card per turn. Suddenly you're not drawing lands, you're drawing cards that cycle for 1. And another example, Tranquil Thicket. This deck plays both of them, I believe.
Yeah,
2 of each.
He has access to both of those cycle lands in Thicket and in Cave. And again, that was kind of, the engine behind Astral Slide back in the day, and Lightning Rift decks were these cycling lands. Hoogland getting use of them here. He's going to keep trying to establish his Wasteland lock. But as you mentioned, he needs to find an answer for that Batterskull, or he can take over the game all by his lonesome. We've seen this happen in Legacy many, many times.
Brad has just enough lands to get that Batterskull down, but really, if Hoogland can take care of the Batterskull, that should be all she wrote. He's going to Wasteland Brad completely out of the game here. So that, the Batterskull will probably be the last play that Brad makes.
So, Hoogland going to cast Life in the Loam again. You see him dredge by an Abrupt Decay. There's a Caracas. There's a Wooded Foothills. He's going to get back a couple of cards here in Forgotten Cave, in a Wasteland. And it looks like a Wooded Foothills as well. Yeah. But, right now he's looking for a card like Grove of the Burned Willows to get things started, probably. Maybe even a card like Tabernacle of Pendril Vale. That could certainly get him out of this situation.
Yeah, I mean, this has to favor Hoogland, I would think. He has so many different, he has like so many draws to work with here. That's really hard to think that he wouldn't be able to find something. His deck's probably prepared for this situation. A fair number of people in Legacy do play Batterskull.
That is true. So now, Wasteland's going to take care of the Tundra. Nelson puts in the Batterskull via Stoneforge Mystic. He's going to untap, he's going to draw, he finds a Stoneforge Mystic, and it looks like to me, he's all in. It's got to be these 2 creatures, it's got to be Batterskull, it's got to be Stoneforge Mystic. Can Hoogland stop them?
All right, so let's talk about some of the cards that he's trying to look for here. A Burning Wish should be good enough. He can get Shattering Spree. He could also get an Abrupt Decay would take care of the Germ token. Brad can't really re-equip the Batterskull or bounce it ever. That would probably be good enough. Knight of the Reliquary, also good enough. It's probably big enough. He can make that card big enough just to block.
Yeah, he can go through some work to make that big enough. You see Hoogland's going to pick back up. One of the cards that he did dredge for this Life in the Loam is a Grove of the Burned Willows. So now his Punishing Fires in his graveyard, they are on, and he can chase down that Stoneforge Mystic and probably that Germ token. So, sitting at 13 life, as long as he does balance this properly, he can chase down that 4/4.
Yeah, so remember there's this trick with Grove of the Burned Willows. If he can take 5 this turn, go to 8, he can get back that Punishing Fire, then cast it, get it back, cast it, and that will take care of Batterskull. It will take all his mana, but right now it's looking like he can stabilize at 7 life. Brad's going to try to ponder to make that a little bit harder, because if Jeff is using Grove of the Burned Willows to get back Punishing Fires, then he's probably not using his land drops to waste it.
So now Hoogland's going to take it right on the chin. He's going to go down to 8. But it looks like he's starting to establish control and stabilize, something that we've seen him do in Standard with his black-green deck. Now he's looking to do it with his Loam deck in Legacy. Going to let Brad gain a life via the Grove of the Burned Willows. Return both.
So there's 2 Punishing Fires.
Yes.
Okay. Which that makes it a lot easier for Hoogland right now.
It really does. It really
he can
does.
just tap. He can just cast both of them.
And you see him right now this turn, he takes a draw step.
Yeah.
So that's how confident he's feeling now, is now he can actually Wasteland Brad's last land, which he's going to do. He can take care of that Batterskull token via double Punishing Fire, or he can just shoot down a Stoneforge Mystic.
It's important because his draw for this turn was Abrupt Decay.
Wow. And there's Abrupt Decay to take care of that. And Nelson, with no permanents, he's going to scoop it up. So Jeff Hoogland going to tie it up against Brad Nelson, 4-color Loam, on the comeback trail against Esper Deathblade.
With 1 permanent. 1 permanent.
Oh, I guess he did have the Batterskull.
Yeah,
I apologize. Yes, he did have the equipment that has life link and can do everything else, but with nothing on it, not very good. So, a very important 3rd and final game. You saw Jeff, I think he played that game incredibly well. I think he did a nice job of managing all of his resources, fights through a Nile Spellbomb. You could have easily seen Hoogland second guess himself a lot based off of that Burning Wish for Thoughtseize when he had Chalice of the Void in play. But he bounces back mentally, bounces back physically, gets back into this game, and now he's got the opportunity to win the match.
Yeah, his deck, he really threaded a needle there. It's really hard to think of a better draw for Brad when he has that Nile Spell, a Thoughtseize into a Nile Spellbomb that activates into a Geister Saint Draft. That's really close to the best thing he can be doing there, and Jeff was able to overcome it.
Now let's bring up this point to play from Brad Nelson. His thoughts is he had the option of Life from the Loam, or he had the option of Knight of the Reliquary. Now, what card did he lose to that game? Arguably Life from the Loam.
Right.
Would he have still lost Knight of the Reliquary? I think that's a different discussion, altogether. He certainly would not have been Wasteland locked as well as he was from Jeff that game. So how do you feel about taking that Knight of the Reliquary instead of Life from the Loam and then using your Nile Spellbomb?
We talked about that play. I think at the time I really did like the line that Brad had taken. There was this pivotal point where Jeff had to naturally draw a Burning Wish. He had about 2 turns to make the draw. He did it on the first of 2 turns. If you're Brad, I'm okay playing to a line where my opponent has 2 turns to draw into that kind of out. Today it didn't work for Brad. But I think he definitely put Jeff in a tough situation. I'm not sure that the situation where he leaves a Knight of the Reliquary but exiles the Life from the Loam is a better situation for Brad. It's possible you're giving Jeff more outs there.
The question is, does his thoughts he's taking another Reliquary versus Life Alone, does it give him the best opportunity to win? Is it a good play in the short term but not the long term, or vice versa? That is the decision-making process that you have to make with a powerful discard spell like a Thoughtseize. You can argue both sides about if he got it right or if he got it wrong, because the big picture, if you look at that game, and if I were to go to Brad now and say what happened in game 2, he said, I lost the Life of the Loam, dredging, getting Wastelands, finding Punishing Fires, and Grove of the Burn Willows. That's how I lost. Is that truly how I lost, or did he lose because maybe selecting the wrong card off of a Thoughtseize?
Exactly.
Every decision in Legacy, and everyone in Magic, honestly, is huge.
Well, it's always interesting to see how those small decisions play out over the course of many turns, and that was one of the things, he was able to, with the Nile Spellbomb, blank the Life from the Loam, but not permanently blank it. Eventually it did start dredging.
You're going to see Nelson here start off with another Deathrite Shaman. Hoogland draws a forest for the turn. You can see a Punishing Fire in his hand. You see a Wasteland. I think there's a Mox Diamond over there as well, so he could have 2 mana on turn 1 again.
Hoogland has been fortunate enough to be 3 for 3 on those first turn Mox Diamonds. Can't be understated just how important they are. He's going to discard. This is an interesting play where you discard Grove of the Burn Willows to cast that Punishing Fire.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy, that's, as someone playing against Loam, that's misery. Like, oh, you're discarding the Grove. Oh, that's great.
Hey, we may look back on that play. You take a look at Hoogland's hand. He has a Wasteland. He has a Chalice of the Void. He has a Burning Wish. But he is letting himself break up his own engine. Is it better to play a forest there instead of Grove of the Burn Willows?
Yeah, I am a little confused on that play. I think Jeff may have played the forest, played Mox Diamond, looked at what he had to discard and thought, oh, I probably shouldn't have played forest.
Because if Nelson maybe goes Stoneforge Mystic this turn, gets a Batter Skull, Jeff doesn't have a way to really take care of it right now, so this is something that could end up biting him here. I'm very interested to see how this is going to play out, if this decision-making process is correct by Hoogland, because right now, you guys can see it at home, Matthias and I can see it in the booth. There's no Life from the Loam in his hand.
Well, there's a Burning Wish, which I believe does turn into a Life from the Loam out of the board.
But it does take there's
an extra step.
Yeah.
It's 4 mana.
Yes.
So yeah, there's an extra step involved. Hoogland, good with, is an experienced pilot with this deck. I feel like he makes the play for a reason, but this is scary for him. He's going to lose that Grove of the Burn Willows to a Deathrite Shaman.
So now Hoogland's going to draw his card. It is another copy of Wasteland. So how does he want to start his turn?
Yeah, I'm questioning on the play. If he had the Grove here, this would be such a different game. He'd just be tapping 3 mana to kill a Deathrite Shaman and passing back.
It would be a lot easier.
Well, not to kill it. He'd probably wait, but yeah.
Sure. I mean, but it would be a lot easier situation. He's going to Wastelands Nelson Scrubland, so he's going to go after his mana now. But again, with Deathrite Shamans providing mana, how good is that? Also, by killing that Plains...
He doesn't have a swamp to massacre with either.
He kills the Plains with Wasteland. He's going to go get a Perish. Okay.
So Brad has 1 turn before that Perish hits. It's going to take care of both Deathrite Shamans, but the Deathrite Shamans, the damage will be done. They're going to get that Grove of the Burn Willows.
If you take a look at Nelson's hand right now, Matthias, there is a Force of Will there. The question is, there a blue card? And it looks like Brad is sitting on lands and a Force of Will. That's it.
Interestingly, Brad's very close. He's 1 mana short of being able to hard cast the Force of Will.
I know. That Wasteland, a bit of a backbreaker. You see Nelson's going to play an Underground Sea. He's going to sift those cards through his hands, but he's got no spells right now, and the Perish Hammer could be coming as he's going to pass the turn back. Hoogland's going to draw a Badlands now, so he does have a Swamp for a Massacre if that's going to end up coming up.
And now, interestingly, because that Burning Wish had to be used to find the Perish, Hoogland actually doesn't have much of a follow-up here either.
So Nelson Gonna activate a Deathrite Shaman. What does he take? Does he take a Wasteland? Does he take Grove?
He takes a Grove. I think he's gonna take the Punishing Fire. Interestingly, he chose to take the Punishing Fire and the Grove instead, and the Wasteland.
Yeah, so he's gonna
That's
leave
actually
Grove.
great, because that's probably a heads-up play by Brad. Those are the most relevant cards. Grove is nothing without a Punishing Fire, but a Wasteland is a way that Jeff can really win the game quickly.
Now we take a look at Hoogland's hand. He does have another copy of Burning Wish. He's also got Chalice of the Void. He's going to play a Wasteland. He's going to reach for mana. Going to leave the Mox Diamond opened, of course, since it can provide any color. And now Burning Wish. Nelson gives him the
This one's going to
A-OK.
find a loan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, and he
Jeff doesn't
immediately
even
grabs
think.
it.
He knows where it's going.
It's time to get the engine online starting next turn, because he's going to begin with a Wasteland and keep Nelson stuck at least 2 mana.
Yeah, as long as he has Wastelands in his hand, he's going to keep Wastelanding before he loans. Once he runs out of them, basically wants to make sure that he gets a chance to Wasteland at every opportunity. So this turn we'll probably see him loam and Wasteland again.
So now Brad draws another blue card, but it's a Force of Will, so he can't force removing Force. Hoogland going to start his turn by casting Life from the Loam, and I had a feeling we were going to see this. I had a feeling
Brad
that
has no option.
Yeah, he has to do this, so he has to delay the Loam in case he spikes a Jace for his draw step, as Hoogland is going to play a Wooded Foothills. He's going to sacrifice that, and you see a Chalice of the Void in his hand, so it might be time for a Chalice for 1 again?
A Chalice for 1, sure, that is a very strong play here too. Brad's pretty much on a top deck Jace, or needs something fantastic here.
Geist and Trap, not bad either.
Yeah, Jeff's kind of assembling the sleeper holds here. He's putting everything in place. It's not long before Brad just doesn't have any plays.
Nelson, it's on to you. Untap, draw, it's an Abrupt Decay. Brad going to play a Polluted Delta. He's going to pass the turn back.
As long as Brad keeps making land drops, he's buying himself extra turns.
Yep.
But Jeff's going to make that clock a lot quicker this turn. He's going to have a choice between Wastelanding and just playing Knight of the Reliquary.
So Hoogland's going to resolve a Life from him. Get back the Grove for the Burn Willows. Get back the Wasteland. Get back the Taiga. Going to play the Grove. Going to play the Knight. So Nelson, you've got one more opportunity to get to that Jace the Mind Sculptor. He looks at an Abrupt Decay.
A lot.
Yes. He looks at Abrupt Decay. It looks like he's going to go to cast it. Gets a Tropical Island. Has the necessary mana.
He has to cast it here on Knight of the Reliquary.
Hoogland says, what are you going to Abrupt Decay? Brad says, get that Knight of the Reliquary out of my office.
All right. So, Brad, no cards in. Can he draw? I think it's a Jace. Can he draw a Jace?
Draws a card. Sacrifice this. It's a spell.
It's a spell. Something that costs at least 3. And he has to sacrifice. It's not a Jace. He's only paid 3.
It's a Geist of St. Traft.
All right. That is a draw. That gives him hope right now. You know that Jeff's remaining hand is just, I believe it's just a land.
I mean, he's just sitting on lands. You see a Taiga, you see a Wasteland. So now does Hoogland have to take, does he have to take a draw step? He does. It's another Taiga. Uh-oh.
And Brad may have just gotten the draw that pulled everything out.
Oh boy.
Hoogland with no plays this turn.
You take a look at Hoogland's lands. What can he do to get himself back in the situation? There's a Nantuko Monastery in his deck. Nelson going to draw a card. I think the place to start for him as he takes a look at his graveyard. Is it going to be Geist attacking? It sure is. In for 6, going to put Hoogland down to 11. Pass the turn back. Hoogland draws a card. It's a Tranquil Thicket. So here comes a redraw.
All right, Tranquil Thicket's a pretty good one here. It gives him an engine. It gives him a couple, with that life in the moment, it actually gives him a lot of draws.
Yep.
See what he can get. He's going to use the first one to dredge.
So, 1, 2, and 3. Sylvan Library, Wooded Foothills, Mox Diamond.
All right, so no help would have come there. If he finds enough Punishing Fires, he can start Punishing Fire
the Angel.
The Angel token. That's
Hey.
something.
Maze of Ith also not bad against that Angel token either, Matthias. So, Hoogland going to cast Life from him. It's going to involve Tranquil Thicket, that's for sure. Let's see what else it's going to involve, however. How about a Wooded Foothills? How about a Wasteland? So now, Nelson, sitting here waiting patiently. Can Hoogland come up with an answer? He's going to go Wastelanding this turn. He's going to attack Nelson's mana a little bit here.
Yep, he has... with the Tranquil Thicket is still in his hand, I believe.
Yes, it is.
So, is it 1 or 2 thickets?
He has just 1.
Just the 1. All right. So he does have 1 he's going to probably just have to start blind cycling that to try to find a card.
Absolutely. He's in dire straits. Nelson, his underground sea gets wastelanded. He floats mana in response. You see that he's considering cracking his flooded strand, but he decides against it. So Brad draws a card. Again in with the Angel and the Geistessaint Trap, knocking Hoogland down to 5.
Hoogland's going to have 1 turn to try to answer this.
He's going to start with cycling.
All right, Brad will gain a life. Not relevant at the moment.
Hoogland
Draws
draws
Burning
a
Wish.
Burning
That is the
Wish.
one. That is one of the draws he needed here. Now the question is, did Brad somehow find a counter spell in the meantime? The Burning Wish should be enough.
All right, Jeff.
One good top deck deserves another, and Jeff found one that he needed.
Jeff found exactly what he needed. Sylvan Library, the draw step now.
All right, so let's go over Burning Wish. He has already used some of his targets this game. He's already found a life from the loam. He also found a Perish, but he has other options here. He does have a Massacre. Brad does have a Plains in play. Jeff does have a Swamp in play. This should be good.
Also, Jeff can search for a Chainer's Edict. I think that Massacre is a little bit safer, as you mentioned, again, because a card like Chainer's Edict does cost 2 mana. Again, maybe he's a little scared to search for that because of a card like Spell Snare, which Nelson is not playing.
Right, I think the 4 mana spell that costs 0 is the safe way to go, and Jeff agrees. He's going to go with that one. It's going to get the Geistessaint Trap. Brad knows how important that one was. You can see it on his face.
So now Massacre is going to resolve. Now a Sylvan Library going to resolve as well. And you said it best, getting back into the sleeper hold. Brad, if you're a WWE fan like myself, was kicking and bouncing off of the ropes, getting a little bit of help, trying to get the crowd into it.
Remember, it's not done. Remember, Brad can just draw another Geist.
Yes, he can.
I think Jeff probably can't beat that.
The window is still open here for Nelson. You see he has a Brainstorm in his hand that he cannot cast. A Snapcaster Mage is going to add to things. A Wasteland here.
All right.
Going to put Hoogland down to 3.
Getting close. Getting real close. Remember, Hoogland doesn't actually have life gain at the ready yet. So he doesn't in hand. Yeah, there's no answer in hand right now. He has a lot of draws to work with.
It's not insurmountable.
It's not over yet.
Yeah. So now he's going to dredge loam for his draw step. And you see he's going to explain to Brad how it works with dredging loam and Sylvan Library.
All right, so for those of you home who aren't sure of the interaction, but it is the reaction between the two is first he dredges. His first draw is a dredge, then he gets 2 cards and can basically reorder them.
Got it. So now there's the loam back to his hand. You guys see Sylvan Library on the screen. A bit of a confusing enchantment, but certainly a powerful one. As Hoogland's going to count his mana, he does have 6. Has not made a land drop this turn, so he will have access to 7 mana this turn against Nelson. He goes reaching. Forest and Badlands, maybe the choice of the day. Going to reconsider. All right, Wooded Foothills.
You probably can't crack that one. That's a full turn he loses if he uses it.
That's a very good idea. Here's life from the loam.
All right, Brad's going to search for a counter spell of some sort. He actually can immediately wasteland that Grove of the Burnwillows. He doesn't want Jeff. He's waiting until Jeff targets, and then he's going to wasteland.
Of course. And with life from the loam, you do have to target your 3 cards first. So that's why you see Brad activate the wasteland in response.
It says up to 3 target lands, not up to 3 lands.
Correct.
Because of that, there is a target.
So Grove's going to bite the dust. Hoogland's going to get back Wasteland, Tranquil Thicket, and Horizon Canopy. Again, as you mentioned, he cannot sacrifice that fetch land. It doesn't shave a full turn off the game. It shaves him to dead. It shaves him to a lethal attack. Going to cycle, finds a Knight of the Reliquary, which he knew was there from the Sylvan Library.
I am confused on how that got cast.
So, he cast Life from the Loam.
That's 2 mana.
He floated mana from the Grove for the Burnwillows. Correct.
Okay. Not the perfect answer. This one's vulnerable to a lot of things from Brad. Brad can Abrupt Decay this guy, so it gives him another out. Remember, he cannot Swords it because of the Chalice on 1. Brad's going to play Nile Spellbomb. Does it work? Jeff says, no, that's going to get countered. And Jeff Hoogland wins the game 2 games to 1 over Brad Nelson. That should secure his spot in the top 8 of the Invitational.
Congratulations go out to Jeff Hoogland. It looks like he is going to be able to draw in to the top 8. Brad Nelson looks as though he may have lost his winning in 4-color loam.
Yeah.
2 innovative decks from Jeff Hoogland, Black, Green, and Standard. 4-color loam and Legacy defeats Brad Nelson. And looks like Jeff Hoogland, the brewer from Illinois, has done it. And is going to make the top 8 of the Star City Games Invitational here in New Jersey.
Let's not count Brad out just yet.
Okay.
Looking at the standings here, he's going to need some help. He's going to be in the X4s.